Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made.
And I'm Ross, creative director at Epic Made, and we're the hosts of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Marcy Selsberg of Blah Blah Blah, Lisa Larson-Kelly of Quantios, and Raphael Pollendagel of Splitbase.
We are forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast. We are always looking for more sponsorship. And as always, this episode is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a collaborative of expert artists and animators who help brands tell powerful and engaging stories. We've demonstrated our expertise in visual storytelling, fantasy pop culture, and detailed world building in collaboration with some of the biggest entertainment brands on planet Earth, including Sci-Fi, Nickelodeon, and TNT. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign.
So with us today, we have Jason Swenk. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So Jason is the agency advisor and coach that guides marketing agencies through a proven framework for growing their agency faster. He has literally written the book for growing a business from nothing into an 8-figure agency. And because of his 8-system framework, he is one of the most sought after advisors to agencies in the world and has worked with brands like AT&T, Hitachi, Lotus Cars, and the like. He also currently hosts the Smart Agency Masterclass podcast, which is the #1 digital marketing agency owner podcast. The show shares strategies and stories from real agency owners on what is working today in the agency world and how they got to where they are now.
All right, now that we got through that, because I know Jason hates hearing about himself.
Yes,
that was painful. Thanks for going through it quick.
Yeah. you have quite the pedigree, Jason. So we got to qualify you in some capacity.
Yeah, for sure. Jason's been instrumental in helping us grow the agency over here and develop some of the things that we're doing to expand that growth. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Jason. But I know you super well, but our audience doesn't. So got a couple quick questions for you so the audience can get a little deeper dive into you, and then we'll jump into the rest of the show. So how long have you been doing this, and what brought you to your industry?
See, I've been in it for 2 decades. So how I got into it was by accident. And I actually owe it to Justin Timberlake, even though I don't know Justin Timberlake, but a friend of mine looked like him when he used to be in that band called NSYNC. And I created a fake website called InShit, and it got really popular. And people started asking me to design websites. And this was in 99. And so just started designing websites from there.
Very awesome. Cool. Okay. Yeah, man.
So you're a big NSYNC fan then?
Absolutely.
Right? Bye. Is that the NSYNC or is that Backstreet Boys? I can't remember.
I don't know either.
I think it's NSYNC, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, we used to when we were going out when we were younger, like we would get into bars and like get bottle services because they thought it was him. Like it was.
That's amazing.
And so I was like, I'm taking this to the next level and created this website. So
that's killer.
That's fantastic.
Cool, man. All right. So what's top of mind in your industry right now?
Well, I was kind of telling you a little bit before of, thinking about, most people, when they're just trying to maintain or kind of 2x their business, it's really easier to, kind of 8x or 10x it or 20x it. Like there's a lot more, or there's a lot less options for when you're thinking bigger. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Okay. Very cool.
Heck yeah.
All right. And then tell us about the project that you're most proud of.
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably say our podcast, honestly. I've been doing it for 9 years. It started out as like a test project, and it's just been one of the best things that we've done, been able to connect with people all over the world, chat with amazing people. And yeah, so I would say the podcast.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you know, I know that that's part of what fuels the mastermind and the agency collective that you have. And yeah, it was funny. I was flying to your retreat last year, sit down randomly next to somebody I don't know on the plane. I was like, oh, so what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to this agency retreat in Colorado. And they're like, is that Jason Swenk thing? I was like, yes, how random is that? It's like, oh, I listened to his podcast.
So random.
You're like,
I paid her well. Like what you didn't know is every member coming to the experience, I literally bought the seat next to them, and I put fake actors there.
Perfect. So she just happened to live down the street from me and was also an agency owner that I wanted to meet. So
she was a fake actor.
That's so cool. Oh, I love it. All right, cool. So
the game gets real crazy when you're that high up.
For sure.
So yeah, we have actually we've shouted out the agency masterclass or mastermind program several times when speaking with past guests. So you're a bit of a myth currently.
The mythological creature, Jason.
Again, they were all fake actors.
Yeah.
Planted everywhere.
And on this episode of Pixel Retentive, we are going to be discussing something that actually Epic Made has been going through the process of somewhat under your guidance and as a result of being as a part of the mastermind, which is finding a niche, kind of niching down into a more specific audience. And I wanted to talk about the process of doing that, as well as the benefits and maybe even some fears or warnings for doing it as well.
Sure.
We can kind of share our experience with how we went about talking about it internally, and then we'd love to get some of your guidance as well.
Go for it. Carl, what was your biggest fear of picking a niche?
Oh, great question. Right. So like I know better than this, but it's still just like alienating all of the money, right? Like you have this idea that if you can serve everybody, you make more money. But I think I know better than that. So that's not the thing that was keeping me back. I think it was more like not being fully aware that the niche I'm going for could support the business, or that it was big enough, or that I don't know. It sounds like goofy almost. I don't know. It's hard to articulate it. I think yeah. And just for context for everyone, we started like niching down to like, all right. And I don't know, a niche. We all say like there's like it's like those people that say entrepreneur. And like I can't stand that. Anyways, so we're trying to target like nerdy millennial brands. So brands that focus on a nerdy millennial market, because I feel like we understand that intimately. Like, and it's not something we have to keep up with. It's what we love anyways. Right. So that kind of helped. And the whole team I just happen to build is all fits right into that perfectly. So that's where we started niching down. But my fear was that it wouldn't work, I guess. Like, so
I think I can probably better articulate that as well. That. It's just and more specifically, we're trying to target companies who target that audience, because we can speak the language and we can help other companies, other marketing companies or agencies kind of speak that language as well. And the actual like average millennial population isn't someone who's going to need animation services, right? Like, so we're kind of trying to partner with marketing companies and other brands trying to reach that market. But I think that the biggest thing, honestly, was that there was an inherent fear of not doing something that we love to do, right? Because one of the things that we were struggling with for a long time, probably since 2019, was that Carl and I have always kind of wanted to get into the entertainment world, right? We've always wanted to do work with brands like Nickelodeon and Sci-Fi, which we have at this point worked with. And I think one of the biggest things is that we realized that we don't, if not forever, we currently don't have the connections necessary to be able to break into that industry in a way that is lucrative. And so we were afraid of removing the reach into just straight entertainment and creating IP and doing the quote unquote fun part of why we got into this in favor of chasing the money, right? Which is where an actual proper niche would lead us. And I think Carl and I had a lot of conversations about this of just, we do actually love the advertising part of it. We do actually love creating these stories no matter what they're for. They don't have to be fantasy, sci-fi themed or skinned stories. That we can do them for a beer label or a even an accounting firm, as long as they're looking for kind of our flavor of product.
Very cool. Yeah, I always tell everybody the biggest misconception about picking a niche or a niche or Grey Poupon or whatever you want to call it is you're only marketing to that particular market. You still can take on work outside if it lines up with, you being able to deliver a result and not spend a ton of time, learning something new, right? You think about when you pick a niche, you're becoming the expert or that leader in that field where people are going to want to work with you. Like if I'm having a heart attack, I'm not going to go to a PhD student.
Right.
They're a doctor, right? Yeah. I'm not going to go to a general practitioner either, right? That's kind of a step up. I'm not going to go to a brain surgeon. Right. They know everything about my brain, but my brain's working, my heart's not. So, and I'm going to go to the best. And how do I determine the best, right? So, it's a big commitment. And what I tell people too is you got to do it. You got to commit to it, right? It's kind of like, and when you commit to it, you kind of have to have courage because it may or may not work.
Yeah.
And then, keep doing it for a while. There's many people I've seen over the years where they'll test it out for a little while, a month, 2 months, 6 months, maybe even a year. And they're like, oh, it's not working. But it's kind of like the week later, then it's like, bang. And I'm like, there you go. So, we committed when we jumped into helping, and connecting agency owners, I was doing the podcast for over a year before we really had any momentum. So just got to commit.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I think there's a lot of advice out there similar, at least echoing, niche down, find your corner of the market and dominate that corner. I feel like that is advice that you hear more often, but I think that what I'm interested in knowing is, how do you identify when it's not working? How do you identify when maybe it's time to pivot, or how do you sort of pick a niche in the first place? Like, how do you know who you should target?
Yeah. So let's talk about picking a niche, right? Okay. Most people will pick a niche based on their biggest client, or they have the most clients in this particular niche. That's a mistake, right? Because you're an accidental business owner or agency owner. You knew how to do something cool. Kind of goes back to my origin story, right? Like I knew how to do something cool. Someone offered me money and I had a business. And then I kept getting referrals and word of mouth and growing that way, which just isn't scalable. And so you have to kind of look at it in kind of like 5 or 6 different questions, right? So if you think about it, I call this kind of like the niche grader, right? And if you look at and kind of draw like a grid, or you can do this on a spreadsheet, and from top to bottom, write down these questions. What do you have experience in? Can you easily reach these people or this niche? Is there a compelling problem or opportunity that you really need to solve, for this niche? Is this niche willing to spend money to solve their problem? Which is a big,
that was the entertainment problem for us, right? Is that the way that it was structured, so few networks were willing to spend money to solve the problems that they had because they have so much internal power.
Yeah, exactly. Also too, the question is the niche large enough to support your business for whatever you want, right? do you have the ability to dominate it? And do you have the ability to, generate repeat business from it? So like if you looked at like those questions up and down, and then to the right or above it, you write down kind of the 4 possibilities or 5 or 6, whatever you want. And then you start going down the column. So for niche 1 that you have an option for, you go on a scale 1 to 10. How would I grade? Like, do we have experience in this niche? And you put like an 8. Or how easily is it to reach these people? You put a 7, whatever it is, total up for each column. And you do that for each option that you're thinking about. And the highest score wins. Right? That's how I would pick it, because you're going off that criteria that I just listed out that will give you the best option. But the other thing too is there has to be a reason why. Like you have to have a passion behind it. Like especially if you're a big company, it's not necessarily like the owner doesn't have to have a passion behind it, because they're not going to be rolling up their sleeves and doing the work, right? Like they have people doing that. But for smaller companies like us, we have to believe in it. And the reason why you pick a niche is so you can understand your prospect better than they understand themselves. So you understand their biggest problem, you understand what they want, you understand how it makes them feel, right? Like you can position it in a way. So like when I'm talking to an agency owner, I'll be like, look, do you feel alone? Do you feel like I just need a plan in order to go execute and see what's working for other people that have had success, right? Like I can talk in their word. Or do you feel that your agency is a burden rather than an asset? So I can I understand their deepest, darkest secrets because that was me.
Right.
Like I understood it. And then, then you can kind of do language that resonates with them, because you want to attract people that that you understand and they understand you,
and you can connect with emotionally, right? Like it's really easy nowadays to be able to find information that connects with a given group of people or a given niche. Information is maybe one of the easiest commodities to come by nowadays, especially with like the dawn of AI. But the emotional connection and being able to speak directly to the unspoken problems, the stuff that people feel, but rather, don't necessarily articulate as well. That kind of stuff is where the niche should probably be.
Yeah. Think about it this way. We're drowning in information, but your clients are starving for your wisdom.
Right.
So, right,
curated information. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so much garbage out there that's not relevant to them, or it's just garbage, right? So like, how do you, like, until you pick one, there's no way you can position your business, yourself, or your personal brand or whatever in order to separate you. Because the only thing separating you, if you don't have, build that brand and that niche, is your price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really it.
That's a race to the bottom. So yeah, when I was going through this niche creator, I think, I was like, all right, so I jumped quickly and like I thought I had a niche that sounds good. And then I think they have money. I think we can dominate. We can get repeat business in it. But I was struggling on how do we reach them? Like I never understood those tactics. I think that was a big thing now that I'm thinking this through. And then, what's the compelling problem they have? Well, I don't know these people, right? I don't know anything about them. I can do research, but it's kind of speculative. And honestly, I use ChatGPT and it really helped me generate a bunch of really good ideas about what their problems are. Now, I just have to test to see if that's actually a thing. But that was actually a really powerful recent solution for this, like just kind of, mining that, if you will, for information. But I think you guys having some of these tactics like you taught us, through the mastermind were pretty cool. Obviously you love podcasts and the value that they have. And this, I had no idea. I remember I had an option to take out some loans a few years ago, and there's like the guy was saying something to me. He's like, oh, well, it get you X amount $1,000. You can use that for marketing. And I was like, I don't even know where I'd spend it. I don't even know what I'm not just going to buy paid ads on Facebook. That just seems like a waste of money, or LinkedIn or any of that. That might work, but I've always been so conscious of every dollar I spend that I would never just throw it at like, hey, we're just going to shoot, thousands of dollars out every month and hopefully something sticks. That sounds like a terrible idea. I'd never recommend that to anybody. But now I know things about like lead generation companies, about email marketing companies, about people that just like help you with all different types of way that are unique outreaches. And I met all those people through the mastermind, which is really cool, but I didn't know they even existed. So I think what I'm asking, what are some of these, like, what are some other tactics or some things that people should be thinking about, like how to reach out? What are best ways to get into your niche and find those people?
Well, I look at it as kind of, I don't like to go over kind of tactics because tactics change. So let me kind of give you like some of the foundation a little bit.
Okay.
I look at it as kind of like 3 different channels, right? Like, so think about what's an outbound channel, inbound channel, and a strategic partnership channel. So it's kind of like a 3-legged stool, and you kind of need to build your business this way. And sometimes 2 of the legs are going to get kicked out. Well, but you can still balance, like the stool's still off the ground a little bit. So think about like on the outbound channel, and all of these take massive research. The people that go to the so-called lead generation companies, it's a big ripoff. Like they're just dialing, numbers for butts and sending out tons of emails. They don't understand. They haven't done the research. Like if someone's listening, and I hope they do, and maybe they'll do it, but out of the millions of people listening or the billions of people listening,
hell yeah,
right? Maybe there'll be just one that does this. So I wish there was a lead generation company that would do a ton of research on like your top 100 that you have. And then they would come up with, like one of the members, Sonia, right? She was talking about like the 8 touch points, right? And then they strategically plan out the touch points to reach out to people. The more specific you are at who you're going after, and the more research and the more you know about them, and the more creative you are in reaching out to them, you're going to get a conversation. So that's one. Inbound, it's what you're doing right now for the billions of people listening, right?
Right.
Is you're creating, podcast for, everyone in the world, right? No, you're not. You're doing it for a specific few. I'm just kidding, right? I always go back to the Will Ferrell acceptance speech on, it was the Mark Twain Award, and it was like on PBS. He's like, I want to thank the hundreds of people watching at home or something. It was pretty fun. I always wanted to kind of incorporate that into an interview a little bit. But like you're creating content that will bring people. So you got to just make sure as you're creating who you're creating the content for. Is it for them? What's the call to action? That kind of stuff. And then the last channel is around, strategic partnerships. We did this at our agency around Microsoft and Sitefinity, right? They created a great content management system back in the day, which allowed people to control their websites without coming to an agency or us to do it. And so, we were able to customize their tool, and build on that and make them look good, which then, sent us more work. So, if you think about kind of those 3 channels, then you can start building that pipeline of the perfect people. Then you can be selective at who you take on.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you pick a niche based on, all the categories we talked about: experience, if you can reach them, the compelling problems they have, if they can spend money, if you can dominate it, and if you can get repeat business, right? Those are the big things, right?
Yep.
So from there, you build an outbound strategy of like, hey, we reach out to them with specialized knowledge and who they are and what they're about. An inbound strategy that produces content that resonates with them based on their problems and the things that you've done research on. And then partnerships with other organizations that also address that same market. That's kind of the system that you recommend.
Well, yeah. I mean, and like if you wanted to kind of put it in like the 8 systems, right? I mean, this kind of follows the agency playbook. Get clarity of where you're going and who you're going after. Position it in the right way where you're the choice rather than a choice. Figure out the right offering. Have a prospecting system, sales system, a delivery system, operation systems, and build leaders that your business will dominate. But you have to kind of keep it's kind of, I remember, you guys are nerds like me. So you guys remember the game Age of Empires?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was like one of my favorite games in college.
Awesome
Right.
game.
And you remember like you had to get a certain amount of gold and wood and food or something.
Yeah,
like that?
resources.
Yep.
Resources. And then each time you would get a certain amount, you go up a Stone Age, from Stone Age to medieval times or whatever. It's kind of like that in a business. Like each time you get those different 8 systems, then you move up a stage. But then you have to reset, and you still have to gather the wood, you still have to gather the food, resources, and that kind of stuff. So,
gosh, you.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That actually
clearly communicated.
Yeah,
love that.
I think that that makes a ton of sense. Is that it's not, you have to kind of level up. You have to gather these or work on these systems until you evolve into the next stage, and then you start from that stage to get to the next one, and you kind of have to repeat the process. Yeah, and that makes sense. It actually kind of gamifies the system a bit, which is kind of fun.
That is fun. Yeah, but we could internally apply that some way. Use some NFTs too, just for fun.
we have a drinking game in the mastermind for whenever Carl sends NFTs.
Or Jason says podcast, one of the two.
I haven't said the P word yet.
Oh yeah, I understand.
It's Carl's real big on emerging technology.
100%.
He thinks it's going to save us all, and I'm still remaining skeptical.
Well, I mean, we have to control it, right? Like, or it'll destroy us all. But I will say, I was the one at the mastermind retreat last year that said AI and NFTs was the future. I just chimed right up when nobody was talking. I was like, hey, this.
I haven't really been hearing any more about NFTs other than through you.
It's cult market right now. It's very niche down, and I think it's not there right now.
I don't know. I'm hearing AI a lot more.
I love this, by the way.
NFT.
Well, what happened is
what happened was
the market crash, and everybody that was just in there for gambling purposes has dipped, right? But there's still huge communities budding, and like that's part of a niche that we're really leaning into. That's actually providing fruit for us.
I'm glad. I'm the type of person that walked to school uphill in the snow both ways. So
I get it.
This new stuff.
You climbed the mountains, Jason. I've seen the videos. Little cliff dive at the end,
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, there's blockchain technology being incorporated now into the federal government. They just released it this month with the Fed Now program. It's actually part of their new data transaction for all financial transactions. So it's actually becoming mass adoption. It's just under the radar right now, and it's not this year, but it'll be back. I promise, with a vengeance. So. Cool. All right. Well, we're let's see what else we got here, Ross. Which one to roll into?
So I think that once you have, so one of the things that we kind of skipped over a little bit is once you've decided on a niche, right? You said something earlier in the podcast where you could stick with it for 6 months or a year, and you kind of left a cliffhanger for us there where it's like
I would never do that.
The next week could be the week, right? And I feel like that's a very gambly sort of mindset.
Such an asshole. I'm such an asshole.
And so how do you identify like when something isn't working, especially if at any point it could possibly start working? It seems like a weird losing battle.
Well, the biggest thing is like, do you believe in it?
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, you have to trust your gut. Mm-hmm. Like your gut's usually always right. I know my wife's gut's always right. When she meets people, she's like, yeah, I don't know about that person. I'm like, oh no, they're fine. And then they turn out to be like a serial killer or something. Right. So I'm like, oh, I should have listened to your gut.
We should talk about how many times that's happened. That is that is an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, not a serial killer.
Yeah.
Maybe just like killed 1 or 2 people.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Serial's like 3 or 4, right? Is that?
Yeah. So it's totally fine. They were just having a bad day. I guess.
Yeah, everyone gets those.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think you just got to listen to your gut. Your gut will tell you when. Um, and it will also tell you like what I don't, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm telling you, right? Like, because I don't want you to hold on to something forever because it's a loser. Like,
Right.
it's kind of like the Kevin on Shark Tank is like, take it behind the barn and shoot it. Right. Like, I'm like, that's such a TV thing. But if your gut's saying that, take it behind the shed and shoot it.
Yeah.
But if you believe in what you're doing and it's taking longer and longer, like, commit to it. Like, I think Sarah Blakely with Spanx, I think she, didn't have any traction for a long time. And then all of a sudden Oprah, said it on her Christmas. I don't know. Like, I don't wear Spanx, but
the lore, the lore is convoluted, but we the concept is there. Is that at any
I don't
point,
want anybody picturing me in Spanx, and probably by saying that
the Swenk Spanx line.
Me in Spanx. That's how I tuck everything in, right? Like,
I don't know, man. Like Carl said, Swank Spanx. It's got a ring to it. There might be a lane for you.
Well, that might have been the serial killer. I don't know.
No, I mean that makes sense. There's no right or wrong answer, right? Because everyone's situation's entirely different, and everyone's perception of their niche is different, right? Where you could be shooting so far left field and feel good about it, and it's just never going to happen. Whereas you could be significantly more level-headed and believe in it just the same, and you have a significantly higher percentage chance of it succeeding.
Yeah. Like, I'll give you a great example. This one company came to me with this idea I did not believe in. It was about like this little book that they would hand out during Christmas, and people would hide this elf. And I'm like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever seen. And they wanted to give us ownership into it. And obviously Elf on the Shelf is $1 billion brand. So, right. Like, it took them a while to get to the races. And they had tons of people like me that were like, no, that's a dumb idea. And then obviously they proved us wrong.
Yeah.
I used to hide that stupid little elf all the time.
Oh, that's gotta be an unfortunate kick in the pants. Now I'm using the thing that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think believing in it is a big part of it for sure. And that's one of the things that Carl and I had to realize when we decided on the current trajectory for Epic Made, the current niche trajectory, is that we thought that the way that we were viewing the company and the work that we were doing is it was very future sighted, and the way that we wanted to imagine ourselves being when we had no need for money. It was basically what it ultimately came down to is, oh yeah, we just want to make our own NFT, not NFT, that's Carl's influence. Make our own IP, that's the word I was looking for. And our own stories and our own entertainment, and do that sort of work for basically just the clients that we really vibed with and really wanted to connect with on a story narrative sort of standpoint. But when we sat down and thought about it, like, some of our favorite clients and some of the best advice we were able to give was coupled with the money being good, was in the space of advertising and creating animations for these types of people that were like us, right? That the types of people that got the Age of Empire reference, right? And so, which is a massive gold mine of an audience that a lot of brands that we're looking at are trying to target. And we know how to speak to them. We know we get the references. We understand a animation style that's reminiscent of the stuff that they grew up watching.
We get that culture is what I say. It's its own culture. That niche, each niche has its own culture, their own words, their own, references, their own everything. So that's definitely 100%.
Yeah, and it I think, going back to what you said, where you have to kind of understand intimately the problem you're trying to solve, we sort of lucked into being able to do that, because in wanting to create our own IPs and our own stories, we know how to market to these groups of people, so we can help marketers market to them.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's all coming together like we planned it.
Yeah. Yeah. We had like a bar conversation one time. It was probably 5 years ago now, where it's created a running joke of almost like we planned it.
It's just
we've consistently lucked into success to varying degrees, and now I think we're finally at a point where we need to have actual planning and actual structure and a degree of control.
Well, it's just you're up another level. You need more gold, food, and resources.
And that's really what it is. That's
but you're never going to get rid of exactly what you got you there. So you just gotta. Everyone always thinks, they look at the bigger companies and go, "Oh, they have it all figured out." But if you kind of like modeled how they got there and kind of reverse engineered it, then you would actually see the path that they used, and then be like, "Well, would this work for us, or how do we use kind of this kind of framework?" I mean, that's really how all of my stuff worked, is just kind of look at what worked and kind of reverse engineer it, and then let people know, like, build on it. You don't have to do it exactly. I always hate when people say you need to do it exactly.
There is one way to do this.
Yeah. I'm like, no, you're full of shit, right? There's only one way to do this. You buy my program for $5,999, but no, wait, act now, and I'm going to give you a couple little bonuses, and I'm going to cut it in half, and I will do a live sales call with you where I'm going to sell you something.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a douchebag.
Yeah. Here's a whole magazine of silver bullets for you that don't exist.
And I've never done anything of what you want to do, but I just took a bunch of people's course, put it all together, and I chatted with ChatGPT. I'm like, no, that doesn't work.
Awesome.
So we are coming up on time. So before we kind of trigger the whole wrap up sequence, we do usually have our guests shout out somebody who was either an inspiration or deserves some extra recognition. Do you have someone in mind as far as someone you want to?
Sure, I will point to Carl, because he created a podcast.
Oh yeah,
right. And he took the courage to and commitment to pick a niche. So
yeah. Well, thanks for that, Jason. I appreciate you, brother. And I want to give a big thank you to Sonia Anderson, who referred me to Jason a little over a year ago. And because she knew how impactful joining this group of agency owners would be. And thus I met you and all these other people. And it literally has, I mean, I've been in business since 2006. I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I started. And, every year I look back and think I didn't know what the hell I was doing last year. And that's how you should feel, right? You should continue to evolve and grow and keep exposing yourself to bigger and better things. And so shout out to Sonia, and you can check out her agency at zo.agency. They do some really great work as well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, we've been talking with Jason Swenk. You can visit his website at it's just jasonswank.com, right?
Yep. And with an E, SWENK, or you can just swank it and go to SWENK.it.
Oh, there you go.
Woo, I love it. Cool. And then how can they find your podcast? Is that also on there?
Yeah, just look up my name, Jason Swenk, on any of the streaming platforms or whatever the podcast platforms you guys use.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Jason. Well, thanks so much for being on our show, man. And until next time, friends, we'll see you soon. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.